1st, 1894,
Okay.
and I'm now, I passed my 82nd birthday. Next birthday I'll be 88.
88. You've had a wonderful career. Where were you born, and can you tell us something about your family and your childhood?
Well, I was born in Greenwood County, South Carolina, midway between Greenwood and Saluda.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, exactly midway between those two places, then the 4-room a shack in which we were born,
Mm-hmm.
a frame shack.
How many?
Well, I had
family?
three sisters, 5 brothers, but one brother I never knew. He died of typhoid fever before I was old enough to know him.
Mm-hmm. How about your mother and your father?
Well,
what kind of inspirations did they give you?
well, mother gave me a lot of inspiration. She could neither read nor write, but somehow she thought if I wanted education, I knew what I wanted to do. So she prayed. My father, as I have indicated a good many times before, my father, from his perspective, he was right. There wasn't but 2 things a Negro could do, he felt. One was to farm. You need no training to plow a mule and pick cotton. And the other one was to preach. If you preach, you didn't need any training, because if you'd open your mouth, God would tell you what to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, but from his point of view, he was right, but 100% wrong, nevertheless,
Mm-hmm.
because I was evidence that you could do something else. But mother always believed that the Lord would help me, and at night she would call the family together and have evening prayers.
Mm-hmm.
She would lead it, and sometimes the family would go around one by one and praying too. So even though my mother was unlettered, I often say that I prayed myself into an education.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You told me once about your experience at 8 years old with what chapter of Matthew's that you
Yeah, the 5th chapter of Matthew.
did that at your church?
Yeah, sure. We had church the 2nd Sunday in the month. The pastor didn't preach that Sunday. He encouraged the parents to have kids to give a piece, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I committed to memory the 5th chapter of Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got through, you see, I had on a white blouse. You see, you didn't start wearing long pants right away, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be about maybe 17 or 15 before you put on long pants.
We call them Snickers, or what were they called?
Well, they just call them short pants. That's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I prayed myself into an education, but my father not only didn't want me to get an education, but he, when I got ready to go to South Carolina State, he threw the $10 after me. And I got President Nixon, one of my favorite teachers. He teaches mathematics. And I got him to write my father a letter, because the same old thing was happening. 4 months, after 4 months in school, he sent for me to come on and work on the farm. So I was a little bit dishonest. I wrote my father and told him I wanted to stay, and he said, wrote back, and he said, here, I'll send you the money, so I'm expecting you home. And then I told President Nixon about it, and he said, well, I write him a letter. Wrote him, and father said, I better come home. If not, I'll send the sheriff for you. Well, if I had sent the sheriff for me, I would have had to go home. But he didn't send it for me. And that was the way that happened.
Yeah. How many grades were there at South Carolina State at that time? It was a high school?
Well, they called it a college. Started in the 3rd grade.
Okay.
And went through high school.
Okay.
And they called it the state college.
Was that equivalent to what they called normal schools at that time?
Yeah, normal school.
Yeah.
And you got a degree, licensure of instruction, you know.
Okay.
That means you could go out and teach, you know.
You left there and went to Bates and became Phi Beta Kappa. How about your experience at Bates College?
But just before that,
Okay.
I went to 1 year to Virginia Union.
Okay, over in Richmond. Yeah.
Over there in Richmond.
Uh-huh.
And a man by the name of Staley, who graduated from Morehouse even. But he said, well, I suggest you go to Virginia Union. And I think it's a good suggestion because there were 2 Bates men teaching there, one in chemistry and one in mathematics.
Okay.
And they knew that I wanted to go to Bates. And they wrote the president, and they accepted me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at that time, you may know, they didn't accept Negroes except in the senior class, had to duplicate it. But they wrote president, and if you pass everything in the first 6 weeks, you'll be a sophomore.
Okay.
So after 6 weeks, I was a sophomore.
Call it advanced placement now.
Yeah. So I went on and graduated valedictorian of a class in South Carolina State. And Virginia Union, I led my class there and met Hadley and Wakefield in chemistry and mathematics, and they wrote mine at Bates, and I was accepted. So I spent really 3 years at Bates.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, how were you financing yourself during those years? Were you working part-time jobs?
Well, I after the first year at Bates, I got a job in the library. I got a janitorial job in one of the classrooms, and I got a job downtown washing dishes.
What years is this, around 1920 or something?
I graduated in 1920
From Bates?
from Bates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is between 1917 and
Well, I graduated from Bates at the age of 26,
Okay.
because I was 22 when I finished high school.
Because of the 4 months
Yeah.
out of the year
Sure.
trying to
Sure.
go to high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, after you left Bates, that you, was that when you got married? First one?
Yes, no, I got married the first time when I finished Bates in 1922.
Okay.
And I was engaged to Ellen, my first wife. The whole time I was at Bates. And I had determined I wasn't going to marry anybody that I got my bachelor's degree. I had 2 ladies who, one was, he said, you go on and I'll help you get an education. Well, I wasn't going to have any woman paying my bill.
Yeah.
this is a wealthy man, black man, and he owned land, he had wage and sharecroppers and renters. And she said, my father will send you. I said, oh no, I can't do that. Because I didn't want, and if I had done that, I'd have never gone any further, because she would have insisted that I stay there.
Kind of control.
Kind of control, yeah. Well, I don't think any man but God Almighty has the right to control my destiny.
Okay. I'll try to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about, what's wrong?
No.
Okay. What about, after you left Bates, you got married, then you went to the University of Chicago?
Well, I got married, and my first wife died 2 years after we got married.
Okay.
Down in Hampton. Well, she's in high school, in summer school in Hampton. Then I went on down there, and I married in Newport News.
Okay.
Then 2 years after that, she died.
Yeah. I remember in your book that did she get, come down with a fever or something? I never recall what she died from.
No, she died from, it's an exophthalmic gland.
Gorder.
Where your eyes,
Gorder.
Gorder, yeah.
Okay.
Where your eyes bulge out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doctor who operated on her went back in the second time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I remember they called me from over there. And Ellen called me to bed and said, Ben, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I said, they're crying. So the nurse sent me back to campus, and the next morning they called me over there and she's dead.
How did your mother react to your BS degree from Bates?
Well, she's very proud, but it was too far and she's too old to take that long distance. She was at my high school graduation and heard me deliver the valedictorian address. And she, after I left to go to Bates, she said to me in 1919, I think it's 1919, she said, if you come back again, you come back to my funeral. I said, oh, Mother Duck. I said, you don't know when God gonna call you. And those who tried to get me to stop at a high school diploma and teach 4 months out of the year, $100. I said, no, I won't do that. I want to get to the place when parents did get old, I could take care of them. So they died in 1938, I think, and one in 1939. And just about, Mother died at breakfast. It was a heart attack, I guess. I buried her. Father buried just as I come back from Europe, attending the World Council of Churches, something like that. And he died. They both died in the same year.
Okay. How did you adjust to the cold weather at Bates?
I didn't. I didn't. I told her that's why I can sit in the house and tell when the temperature's going down. And I went bareheaded all the whole time I was there. And you may remember Born to Rebel. There they had me shoveling snow at Christmas time. And the president's daughter came out and said, Mr. Mays, you better come in the house and warm and mighty cold. I said, well, I'm all right. I had passed the point when I could recognize I was cold. And she came out the second time and said, I better come in I'm on myself, and I went in, my ears were aching, my toes were aching, my fingers were aching. My ears were aching, my nose was aching. And somebody told me that if I had stayed out there much longer, I'd have frozen to death. And if I touched my nose, the nose would fall off, my fingers, the fingers would fall off. And I touched my toes would fall off. And I just didn't make it to say that. So I said, I got my feet got cold in base and never been warm since.
That's all right.
And literally, I can sit inside the house anytime and tell when the temperature is going down upstairs. My feet get cold.
Your feet get cold. Okay. Now, after your first wife passed away, when did you decide to go to, I guess then you went to the University of Chicago?
No, when my first wife passed away, I went to Hampton, Virginia, and got married over Newport News.
Okay.
She was a jeans worker down in South Carolina. And I went on after that, and she died. And the second wife, we got married in 1926, I think. She's a social worker at the University of Chicago.
Okay.
She got a master's in social work.
So you were at the University of Chicago when you met her?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you do both your degrees, or did you go to work and then come back to the University of Chicago?
Well, yeah, at that time, when I got married, my wife was a social worker, and I went on to Tampa in the Urban League work.
Okay.
And I had my master's, and I finished that in the interim, and then went back after making a study of Negro churches in the United States.
Okay.
2 years, so 1932, I went back to Chicago and finished the doctorate and received it in 1935.
Those were rough years. How did you do that during the Depression?
Well, I just did it. I worked at the Pullman Porter.
You just did it. Did you?
Yeah.
How was the nation at that point in time from your perspective?
That was what?
How was the nation responding to the Depression from your perspective about that time? Did you see the soup lines and the difficulty people
Oh,
were
yeah,
having?
sure. Sure.
When did you go to Morehouse?
I went to Morehouse in 1921,
Okay.
after spending 3 quarters at the University of Chicago.
Okay. Is that when John Hope invited you?
John Hope invited
you. He was president of Morehouse at that time?
John Hope was president.
Yes, at that time he invited you to come to Morehouse.
Yeah.
Did he meet you in Chicago and invite
Well,
you?
he heard that he was looking for the teachers, and he heard I could teach mathematics and Greek. I said, no, Mr. Hope, I won't teach you Greek. I got A's in Greek, but I worked too hard on that.
Okay.
And he appreciated that. He said to someone else that Mays is honest. He told me we could teach mathematics but not Greek. So I taught there until 1925. The year I got my master's from Chicago. And after teaching 3 years, I went to South Carolina State in summer school.
Okay.
And there I met Sadie. I met both of my wives on the campus of South Carolina State College.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about Chicago. What was it like to be a student on the campus of University of Chicago at that time? back in the,
Well, at that time, there were only two places I could live, and that was a place under control of the dean of the medical school. So I could stay in Goodspeed Hall without having to pay any room rent. And then in 1926, Sadie came along and was working towards her master's
Social work.
in social work
And that's when you all got married. Okay.
in Chicago.
Okay. How was the professors in terms of them looking upon you in terms of you being black at that time?
Well, I had one teacher that I think I deserved an A, but I could never get anything but a B. So I had another teacher who wore his high hat and long tails on the campus, teaching in religious education. So you were not welcome in the dormitories around the University of Chicago. And this guy by the name of Irene, when we met him, we would tip our hats to him, and he had to return it. We did it for fun, and tipping his hat to black students that he didn't like, But you couldn't tip your hat to him because of his name. He had to return it because of his wife. Otherwise, he'd have never spoken to us. See?
What,
Even most of the time when I was there, when the International House was built, you could go to the International House. But all nationalities roomed there,
was Robert Hutchison president then?
Robert, I took my master's degree under J. Edgar Burton, who was the New Testament scholar. And I had great respect for Burton because he broke up the segregation in the place where they played pool and
Recreation center.
And they wouldn't let Negroes in there. Burton broke it up. And he was very difficult. But when I got an A on the Burton, I danced a jig, Because he would give you a assignment, and you make your report. And when he got through telling him what was in that chapter, you knew he had flunked. But he based his examination on the lectures that he gave and on what I gave in making the report. So I got a straight A with Burton, so that drew him very close to me.
That's all right. When did you become president at Morehouse?
In 1925, I think. But not president of Morehouse. No, I didn't become president of Morehouse until 1940.
Okay. Right.
See, for 6 years I dean of the School of Religion before that.
Okay. So that was 1934.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in 1940 you became, and you stayed president there for how many years?
27.
27 years. I remember being invited to Morehouse in 1951. I was in the 11th grade. You all had the early admission program. Yeah. I was playing football and basketball, and I wanted to play out my senior year, so I didn't. I should have. Okay. What What stands out for you at Morehouse?
That's right.
What stands out for you during those years as president of Morehouse? And, I know Martin Luther King was a student of yours. Many other young men came to Morehouse. If you had to tell young people today, what would you tell them about?
I'd tell them what I told them Tuesday morning in my chapel at Morehouse. Don't let anybody circumscribe your mind. Nobody can tell you how you can make your brain perspire. Nobody can do that, can circumscribe your mind, but reach not to the ceiling, but to the sky is the limit for a Morehouse man. That was once a year I gave a talk in chapel, and I said to them, don't you let anybody segregate you. I said, now if you have to be segregated on the streetcar, the mind is not segregated. And no man is segregated until he accepts that fact in his mind.
Then you become
He's a slave.
enslaved, because you've enslaved yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So many great people came out of Morehouse under your leadership. I'm going to change the subject. You've met most of all the presidents of the United States and been in their company. Could you describe those that you, how would you rate them? Who do you see?
You mean black president?
The presidents of the United States.
Well, I wouldn't say all of them.
Okay.
I met Lyndon Johnson, John F. Kennedy, Harry Truman. These three I knew very intimately. Not very intimately, but Lyndon Johnson was head of the delegation when we went to the funeral of Pope John the 23rd. And the first thing Lyndon Johnson said to me when he got on the plane, he sat across from me. You see that picture going to the bell. And I asked him, what about human rights? And he said, things are moving too slow. I said, what do you mean, Mr. Vice President? He said, I mean just that. They're moving too slow. I said, Mr. President, how can you say that in every civil rights bill that presented to Congress and you were saying you vetoed it, you voted against it? He said, well, I've learned, and I met Negroes that I never met down in Texas. So, I was saying Lyndon Johnson very personally. John Kennedy very personally, because he wanted me to be an ambassador to Israel. And the people were expecting it. Ralph McGill said, now I want you to know that you're going to be made ambassador to Israel. And you let me know in their head I want to break the news. I said, Mr. McGill, I certainly do that, but he said, oh yes, the FBI been all around. So, it didn't happen. I think it did not happen because when the president put his feelers out, I said, I want to finish my work in education. because when the Shah went on, in other words, in the 2 years that Johnson was there, I was invited to the White House 3 times. And one of them when the Shah of Iran was there, you know. I went through the line, said he said to the Shah, I tried to make this man an ambassador, but he wanted to stay in private education. I smiled and went on. I should have asked him, Mr. President, you let it offer it, but I'm glad he didn't.
Because you might have
gone. And it changed my whole career. And as he was shot, I had to leave anyway.
That is right.
We have a new president. The ambassador and everybody that works on White House had their resignation.
How did you met Jimmy Carter? Were you fond of Jimmy? Or how did he?
Well, when he was governor, I wanted to see him about desegregation, and I went down to see him, and I met him, and his daughter, who went to school with Negroes in Washington. What's her name?
Amy.
Amy.
Yeah.
She went to the black school, and she was just a kid, and she took her in his arm and came out and talked with me. And he said, well, I'll have to do something about desegregation. But at that time, the Supreme Court, I believe, had declared it unconstitutional. He'd been chairman of a board, and I met him when he was in the governor's mansion. Also, when he was running for Congress, and we were pretty close together. I still think if he hadn't got hung up on that hostage question, Reagan would have never been in there.
What do you think of Reagan?
Not much. I think Reagan is, well, I'll put it this way. Democratic Party, the party of the people, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party is the party of the privileged. And about everything that Reagan does, it's for the privileged. It's in advancing the cause of those who have.
At the expense of those that have not. Yeah. What about Truman? You knew Truman.
Well, Truman, the only one conference I had with Truman, we went to see him about segregation in the Army.
Okay.
And he's a very admirable guy who went in, and we told him about segregation and everything, and Ku Klux Klan. He said, now you boys know I'm not going to let anything happen to you.
You boys, huh?
And you boys. And you couldn't object because he meant that. And then he declared by executive order to abolish segregation in the Army.
Yeah, was it 1948, 49, something like that? I read it the other day.
It was after he was vice president under, Humphrey was vice president under Johnson. Was it after?
It was right after 45, 46, 47, and Truman was running against Dewey and won, and they didn't.
Don't do it. You mean Humphrey?
Truman. Who was he running against? Dewey?
He never did run against Dewey.
Who was?
Dewey was governor of New York, and
Who did Truman, they didn't think that was gonna win and he won?
No, it must have been Truman. He wasn't Dewey.
Okay, right. But that was in 1940 something when he ran, and no one expected Truman to win.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Truman went around, you know, on the train, you know, and he was way out in the highway somewhere, and the fireman stopped the train, and he said, "How you getting along? Who's that? And you, Mr. President?" "Yes, I'm Harry Truman." He said, "We'll for you, we go for it."
Yeah, but somebody had already printed the paper in New York with him losing,
Sure.
and they had to retract it.
And he said in the nomination, you know, he said, "Who's gonna be president of the United States?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I know. I'm gonna be president of the United States."
Yeah.
Then the Dixiecrats, you know,
Okay.
on the sermon,
Mm-hmm.
they went out and split the party, and Truman wrapped it up.
A while back, you were talking about aspirations and hopes and dreams and how you should hold on to something. Tonight at a program over at North Carolina State, when you took the mic, you made a couple of statements about, could you repeat those about a person not having a dream is worse than, how did you put that?
Well, anyway, I said it's grace not to reach the stars, but it is a grace. It's good to have no stars to reach. It isn't a disaster not to reach the moon, but it is a disaster to have no moon to grasp over. Then that isn't all of it, but I ended up by saying, not failure, but new aim is sin. Any man who doesn't have an aim, not a disaster not to reach the stars, but a disaster not having no star to reach. Not sin, not failure, I mean, but sin. Not failure, but low aim.
Low aim.
Is sin.
Okay, low aim is sin, yeah. I saw that, I read that in one of your sermons, I think. You did.
You might have read it in Leroy Bennett's
Okay,
book
yeah, okay,
on the last of the great schoolmasters.
okay. I want to let my wife just at least get on here with you just one moment. I just want her near you, then we're going to let him go to bed. Okay.
He cheated you, he took all the time. Does he cheat you all the time?
Keep it.
Say something. Go and say something. Can you say something about his sister?
I have a question that I wanted to ask him, and that question simply deals with what would be your response to someone who says, today we don't really need black colleges and universities?
I would say to him that if you say that you do not need black colleges, you have been led to believe that you are inferior. And the white man who says you do not need it, he's speaking as a superior race. If you come on into my school, you don't need anything else. In other words, you deny your blackness, and I don't care what you do, you will be a black man as long as you live. If you have $1 million, you're gonna be a black man as long as you live in the world. So you cut yourself off from your heritage. I am an Afro-American. That's a fact. Not only history, but it's a fact. And if I try to get away from that, I'm doomed.
I have to agree wholeheartedly with you on that.
I think the logic is inescapable.
It's the only way you can say it.
Yeah.
Inescapable.
What do you see in terms of unity among the blacks in the country at this moment in time? Where do you think we are?
Well, we have made great progress since my day. 10 times more progress now than then. The failure, the danger is, if a man says he doesn't need black colleges, he's repudiating his entire past. And he's saying to white folks, you're superior, so I'm going to get with you.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Mays, let me change the subject slightly here, even though this is probably something that ties in with that topic. What do you see as a black theologian? What do you see the role of the black church today?
The role of the black church is to do for black people what a white church can never do. The white church came out of the enslaved institution. I mean, out of a free institution. The black church came out of slavery. And the message of the white man is that of a superior race. You listen to the white preachers. They never come to grips with the problem at hand. They speak off the point, talk about justice, but not justice for the black man here. Only the black man can preach the gospel to black people because he came out of slavery. They look at that gospel from 2 different angles. I have an African background. I can say anything in the black church, but the white man can't say anything in the white church. If he does, they kick him out. Now, a few were kicked out, but most of them not going to do it.
Do you think there'll ever be a solution to what is often referred to as Sunday morning being the most segregated, 11 o'clock hour being the most segregated hour?
Well, there's two answers to that question. One is segregation has been institutionalized. In the white church. Now, to segregate me because I'm a race that individualized, but just segregate me in the church, that institutionalized segregation is enthroned in the white church. You see, a man is a part of his environment. The white man cannot get away from the people he sits in the pew with. people he go to Sunday school with, the people he shoot golf with. But so he gonna stand in good favor with his group. Now the only man is who has done for the law what the law needs to be done for it, is desegregate the law. Hugo Black was in Alabama. To get anywhere, he had to be a member of the Klan. But when he became a judge on the Superior Court bench, when he got there, he was one of the great justices who tried to desegregate the law, along with Chief Justice Holmes, one of the great jurists of all time. He lost his friends in Alabama. But he is a free man. And he did what the law should do. Rise above the environment and desegregate the law.
What specifically do you mean when you say desegregate the law?
He rose above his environment and began to do what justice requires. If you read Higginbotham, circuit court judge in New York or Pennsylvania, I believe, as a matter of color, he shows that the great problem that Negroes have to work with, they get the law off their backs. The law is the thing that you got to get right. Did you make myself clear?
So much injustice being perpetrated by those in power that's supposed to be doing what is right, but doing just justice for some, but not justice for all.
Or else calling it law and order, the code word sometimes.
You could have law and order. You had law and order in slavery. You had a few uprisings, like the man up in Virginia, and then Montveasy. But they killed him too.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say a few words about Martin Luther King as your pupil, and how you found him, and what did you think that Martin Luther King contributed to us?
Well, he came out of Morehouse. He entered Morehouse at 14 as an early admission student, graduated at 18. He went to Crozier in New York, in Pennsylvania. I was a ranking student. Went to Boston University and took his doctorate, studying some at Harvard. And came back instead of, I had ordained Martin Luther in his father's church, but after he got his doctorate, he went on to Montgomery and wanted to try his own wings. And being young, the Montgomery Improvement League, when you rode the parks, for some reason, I want to know why, seamstress downtown, and you got on the plane, and I'm on the train, and they tried to desegregate her, and moving this little board back and forth, and she wouldn't move. Why? Nobody knows. She just got tired. Then seamstress all the way downtown. She's the hero of that drama, no question about it. And then when they went down to get out, Nicholson was the head of it, and he's a Pullman Porter. Martin Luther was new in town, so it made him the spokesman. And he went down there and they put him in jail and kicked him in the jail. And then Negroes rose up.
And he said he had
And the bus boycott was on.
yeah, he said he had been hit and kicked so much that he was immune to the pain, I think.
Yeah. And John Kennedy, he was afraid to death that at the past in the, well, you're taking the March on Washington, when Fred Randolph and King and Payne Rustin and the man who was the head of the NAACP, Wilkinson. And when Martin Luther, when they met there and spoke at the Washington Monument to 250,000 people, saying they're trying to bomb now. And all of them there about 15 minutes, and Martin got up and made his speech, and folks just went wild. And that made him a leader, and he went on down to Montgomery. He's in Nashville, and he came by Atlanta. His father called the people. I was there. Mr. Yates was there, Douglas, and Scott, the newspaper man, and when it's almost unanimous for them, for Martin not to go back, because they were going to arrest him as soon as he hit there. And Martin looked at me, and I said, Martin is right. He can't be a leader while his comrades in the battle are being arrested, and he's going to be hiding out. He said, I heard Martin say, I'd rather spend 10 years in jail while my comrades are in jail. And I said, you're right. And then my respect for Martin leaped 1,000-fold, because I knew he's free.
What qualities about Martin, since you knew him personally, what qualities made him ideally suited to be?
Nobody can tell that, only God can tell that. Circumstances determine it. Circumstances drove me out of South Carolina to go to Bates. Circumstances drove me on to the University of Chicago. I want to meet the toughest competition in the world. Circumstances.
Well, Lawrence, I think we probably have exhausted him with questions now, and especially in light of the fact that he has to.
I want you to
Not
hug
unless
him.
you have some other
So
questions.
appreciation for him coming up here and get a hug out of you from Dr. Mays. He still likes
You got
that.
what? You got what?
Get her a hug.
Yeah. I guess that's where it's coming.
Okay. And we're gonna sign off though. This has been real nice.
Okay. We certainly appreciate.
Let me ask you one other thing before you
indulgence.
leave. How many honor degrees that you've had, and how many plaques? And
I have 525 plaques and awards, and 52 honorary degrees.
that's something.
One for each
You got that one each day in the week, one each
week in a year.
That's okay. We're gonna sign off here with Dr. Benjamin Mays. This is December the 8th,
1982 in the home of Lawrence and Irene Clark with Dr. Benjamin Mays, the president emeritus of Morehouse College.